November 2000 saw a new entry to the Mechwarrior franchise release, Mechwarrior 4 Vengeance. Developed by FASA Interactive and set during the Fedcom Civil War, Vengeance followed the rise of Ian Dressari. The son of clan war hero Duke Eric Dressari, Ian fights to reclaim his stolen heritage in a bloody civil war on Kentares 4, a microcosm of the larger conflict happening across the Inner Sphere. The game received multiple awards, including Best Simulation Game at the E3 2000 Game Critics Rewards. Metacritic has since ranked it alongside Diablo 2, Counter-Strike, Thief 2 The Metal Age, and Icewind Dale. It sits in good company for its time. An expansion pack, Black Knight, was developed by Cyberlore and released 1 year after launch. Black Knight continued the story of Vengeance as the Black Knight Legion was called in by Steiner forces to help overthrow Ian's regime. While still generally well-liked, it reviewed slightly lower than the base game. This expansion was no Brood War. Still, the additional content was appreciated and it was priced just right for what it offered. Cyberlore later released a pair of mech packs in mid-2002, one for the Inner Sphere and the other for the clans, that each contained 4 mechs plus goodies like a few additional weapons. These were not well received, perceived as an overpriced cash grab at the time, and are today what we would consider as DLC fodder. In late 2002, the series turned once again to a mercenary-focused game with the standalone expansion Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries. Built on the same engine as Vengeance, it included the mech and map content from Black Knight and was compatible with the mech packs. Not surprising, as Cyberlore was also involved in development with FASA on this. Mercenaries lacked truly open-ended mission play, instead following Vengeance's style of a linear story, but left players open to choose their progression across the star chart. Players could hop from a series of available planets to take contracts from employers. Even while sales continued, there were troubles on the horizon. FASA Interactive's original parent company and the originators of the BattleTech franchise, the FASA Corporation, had ceased active operations in 2001. This was not due to bankruptcy, but instead was a voluntary cease. Allegedly, the owners saw the pen and paper tabletop market as dwindling, and while the IP remained valuable, they did not see value in continuing active operations. FASA Interactive continued on as a part of Microsoft Game Studios, but was doomed to shut down in 2007. This was not the end of the game, however. In 2009, the online community MechTech announced that they would be distributing Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries as freeware. The rights were cleared by Microsoft in April 2010, and distribution was made available through direct download or torrent. This release included the original content, plus unofficial mech packs for new mechs, battle armor, infantry, and a variety of weapons and maps. As MechTech never held an actual license to the BattleTech IP, and this material was developed independently of the IP owners, these additions were more tolerated than endorsed. Still, the releases breathed new life into an aging game, and continued until 2013 when the MechTech site shut down. MechTech has since made a comeback as of December 2019 with an active Discord server and a re-established mech match, which gives existing copies of the game online server capability again. Rumors are they are working on a new mech pack, but so far there is no indication they are seeking rights to resume their old distribution. Since the MechTech release was discontinued, the game has languished as abandonware. Due to the SafeDisk DRM not working on Windows Vista and later, physical copies are unusable without cracking. DRM has yet again fucked us all for no real benefit. So, unless you were one of the lucky people to have downloaded the MechTech release while it was offered, there is no legal distribution available. Thankfully, here at the Black Sun Company, we did snag copies from MechTech back in the day. So today, thanks to the gift of technical fuckery and the upcoming release of Mechwarrior 5 on Steam, we are offering a retrospective review of the game. This is Roan, and welcome to Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries. Now, having played this game at release, I can't give an unbiased review. If you'd asked me in 2003 what my score would be, that would be 10 out of 10, no question. To moderate the inevitable nostalgia goggles, my personal review will be followed up by a group review and discussion. Let's jump in. For a quick overview, gameplay-wise, you are the pilot of a giant walking tank with the top half of the body being aimed separately from the legs. Like a tank, you can drive in one direction and shoot in another. Damage is assigned by location, legs, arms, head, you get the idea, with these locations being destructible. It's possible for mechs to fall over with sufficient damage, leaving them prone and unable to act until they stand back up. This can happen both to you and your targets, so be careful. Weapons are restricted by tonnage and available slots. Unlike previous games, the slots are color-coded to only accept specific weapons types, be it energy weapons, missiles, or ballistics. Armor can be added or removed from hit locations, either to give you that little extra edge or little extra survivability, allowing you to balance between defense and offense. How much damage you can deal is restricted by ammunition and heat mechanics. Ammunition needs little to no explanation. Cannons and missiles go boom until they run out, and unless there happens to be a mech repair bay within the mission, you cannot restock. Weapons do generate heat, and if you build up too much, your mech will shut down for a few seconds. This makes you an easy target for headshots. Energy weapons don't have an ammunition pool, with the exception of things like flamers, but generate significantly more heat. This limits their total effective output, and that heat scales dramatically with longer-ranged types like PPCs or extended-range lasers. You are tasked with destroying combined arms like helicopters, jets, other mechs, and tanks alike. Terrain is unsurprisingly not destructible. This is something the engine couldn't handle, but buildings and foliage are. Hiding in the woods did provide some measure of cover, although even a single shot from a light laser would be enough to destroy a tree. But that's one shot that you didn't take. The missions themselves would range either from simple engagements to defense, escort, or search and destroy. Navigating missions is handled primarily through a waypoint system, or nav points as they're referred to. Nav points are displayed at the top of the screen with a compass. This allows for relatively easy navigation without requiring a map. Radar at the bottom displays both friendly and enemy targets and can be toggled to a passive state, making it harder for you to be detected. Inclusion of modules like ECM and Beagle Active Probe also affects how detectable mechs are and how well you can detect them, which plays both into the campaign and multiplayer. None of this is surprising to anyone who's played Tabletop Battletech or one of the previous Mechwarrior games. The question on everyone's minds, the one that actually matters, is it fun? Absolutely, both in the campaign and multiplayer. The campaign was built for a single-player experience only, but allows you to command up to 2 lances of mechs with AI partners. For clarity, 1 lance is 4 mechs, so that's 8 total maximum. The AI of the game isn't exemplary, but is generally competent. Friendly, AI can be commanded through a series of function key presses, ranging from defend to follow to go to next nav point, or similar sorts of general directions. The campaign has a controllable level of challenge that goes beyond the simple easy, medium, hard that you find on games today, but instead has a finer granularity which affects AI behavior, how much is thrown at you in mission, and total mission payouts. A bad mission at a high difficulty can have long-lasting effects as you're having to claw your way back from the brink. Multiplayer has variations of old classics like Deathmatch, Team Deathmatch, or Capture the Flag. At this stage, you should only expect land play to work, with public games hosting having long since died out. Even though the campaign was designed to be single-player only, a mod was released that allowed for co-op mission play in a multiplayer server. This is how the group was able to play through the missions together. This automatically sets the tonnage and C-bill, total cost, limits to expected ranges for the mission. However, if you really want to cheese, you can just set both to max on any mission. Considering that difficulty settings make no difference on the multiplayer mod, and, as far as we can tell, it defaulted to the maximum difficulty, it's already at the hardest, go ahead and cheese it. And unfortunately, the mod doesn't let you use the star chart, have any of the pre-mission briefings, or anything that was really visible for the campaign play itself. It's all just the missions themselves. The mission voice acting does remain active, as do the objectives.
Enemy detected. Enemy detected.
We are clear of the dropship, moving to clear spaceport. Take out the fuel tanks and radar stations. Let's give them plenty else to worry about.
But all the context is lost. My overall score on Mercenaries, as it stands today, would be a solid 8 out of 10. It is still fun to go back and dust off every once in a while, but the lack of out-of-the-gate co-op campaign does knock a few points off the top. The Mechwarrior games have always been built for 4 or more friendly mechs. Sometimes you're only commanding a single lance, sometimes it's 2. So the addition of a multiplayer component doesn't significantly change the campaign balance itself, and frankly, it should have been a core option a long time ago. We shouldn't require a mod to get this kind of experience. And since the official server shut down, multiplayer is pretty much right out. MechTech having re-enabled Mech Match is welcome, but I'm afraid this is just a last gasp from my perspective. LAN play is still possible, so there is that if you decide to go full retro and have a LAN party, or with the age of social distancing here, you just use a VPN. The mech customization in this title is not what I would consider up to snuff. I do acknowledge they were trying to balance and prevent boating of low-weight weapons, especially medium lasers, but I found the change from previous titles to be too restrictive. For comparison, I believe the later Mechwarrior Online's hardpoint system was the correct way to go, where slot placements still matter, but total weapons are restricted by type. Also, the tendency for mechs to stackpole, an annoyance to me back in the day, has since grown to be a full-blown irritation. The shitcan cascades that can and inevitably will follow mechs blowing up really hit home for me on playing this recently. And while this doesn't affect my review score, getting the game to run even on VMs can be a challenge. I've included a link in the description to instructions on getting Mercenaries and the other Mechwarrior 4 titles to run on Windows 10. If you're playing on a Ryzen-based system, you are going to have to run that in a VM, as far as I can tell. So that is my take on Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries. Let's hear what the group has to say.
Hello everyone! So joining us today is our players, so we'll be getting everyone's perspectives here after playing the campaign in co-op. So starting off is Merv. What is your experience with BattleTech?
My experience with BattleTech starts in the 80s when I discovered that these really cool minis worked really well on the in-scale train boards I was building as a kid. And said, what's that? That looks like a fun game full of stompy robots. And also about that same time, the very first Mechwarrior game came out for the PC. I've played tabletop for a long time. I love the Mechwarrior series. I will admit to, as a kid, taking cardboard tubes and some things and acting like I was a Warhammer around Halloween at one point. I even did some game demos for cons when I was in college. And let's see, I've been playing it just since forever.
So before now, you had played Mechwarrior 4 Mercs?
Yeah, I've played pretty much the entire franchise, one way or the other. I used to actually play both. I played to the campaign several times back in the day. I also used to play multiplayer for it all the time. Those servers are long to dust, and other things have come along since then.
Alrighty, so next up is Silk. What is your experience with BattleTech?
I had seen the minis when I was younger, but by and large, I hadn't really done much with them. I think I bought a few just for dioramas and whatnot. I think I played one of the original Mechwarrior games, either 2 or 3 when I was younger, but never really got into it until recently.
Okay, so in this case here, if it was like in the 2-3 era, really heavy wire frames and things like that there. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So before now, had you played Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries?
No.
Not at all. Okay.
Completely new to me.
Alright.
So, Serby, what is your experience with the BattleTech franchise in general?
In general, so growing up, near the Family Fun Center, let's say, for a while, I think they still have them actually, the BattleTech pods.
They do.
Oh, yeah.
They
Yeah,
do.
so growing up, every time we went, that was one thing we always did was, do a couple rounds, and yeah.
Oh yeah, if you can find
No,
anyone there.
it definitely enhances the experience.
So in that case, because those were actually based on Mechwarrior 4, kind of have played.
A little bit.
Just not mouse and keyboard.
Just not mouse and keyboard. I'm used to the more physical controls. And even then, I was still learning the ropes.
Oh yeah.
And lastly, we have Cricket.
Hello.
So, hi, what is your experience with BattleTech?
Well, when I started dating this one guy, he decided that the best way to get me to really engage with him and go on dates was to show me this, strange tabletop game of his that used a bunch of, cool little minis that he was showing to me and stuff that he had painted himself, which, by the way, yes, sexy. And I was terrible at it. I was very confused because there was a lot of deep lore involved, and I didn't really enjoy it as much. And then he showed me Mechwarrior Online, and I got into it.
A decent base coat, a little bit of dry brushing, and some inks will get you laid.
Well, fair enough. Overall, and this is just open mic for everyone here, what is your impression of the game?
I'm enjoying it.
I remember just how much I hated that Steiner lane. Also, I realized that many of the MechWarrior games are products of their times as far as technology went, but you can see also a progression when you went from MechWarrior 1, which had things as they were, and then you start seeing like the ability to customize your loadouts and things in 2 and 3. You can definitely tell in 4 they tried to rein in the difference between a tabletop game where you roll to hit versus a video game where you, the meat sack, are a much better shot than your tabletop counterpart. And so things like, 12 medium lasers to the face, they obviously tried to rein that in for game balance purposes because, yeah, people did bad things in MechWarrior 3.
We're doing really silly things like, hey, I'm going to put PPCs in my feet.
Yeah, my feet are now kicking you with particle cannons. I mean, that's pretty anime, but BattleTech isn't anime Stompy Robot. It's Western Stompy Robot where they're big and a little ungainly.
Yeah, just a little bit there.
Obviously, it's a little dated.
Yeah, it's almost
But
20 years old.
Yes. So sure, it's almost old enough to drink, but overall, I enjoy. The biggest thing is just learning each mech and kind of learning how the actual game systems work.
Yeah, except they all do handle a little bit differently.
There's
there.
just enough variance that, yeah, you need to spend a little time with each mech and kind of learn it in and out and, see what makes it tick for optimal play, let's say.
Yeah.
It drives me a little crazy how it's not very smooth, but I don't know if that level of, stuttery jank is my computer, the program, or the fact that we were trying the multiplayer thing.
And not only that, so the multiplayer was a mod, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So not only that, we're dealing with a 20-year-old game on an operating system that is not the biggest fan of it. So you have to play around with it to get it to work to begin with.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of the weirdness came from.
Yeah, and that's fair, but I also know that just in general, it's not going to be as smooth as I'm used to from like MWO. So I think that's just something that a lot of people would have to adjust to if they come from a newer game. Just like going from an Elder Scrolls Skyrim experience to Oblivion, which I did last night.
Oh.
I re-downloaded Oblivion, and then I went crazy and just uninstalled it because I just
Going
can't.
back is too hard.
You just couldn't.
Yeah.
No.
I really enjoyed Cauldronborn. That seems to be, out of the mechs that I've been playing with, that one is just fun. It seems to strike a good balance, and I'm enjoying customizing the ones that I'm playing with.
Well, as one of our newcomers to the game here, what did you think of the actual customization in the mech lab? Because, as Merv was saying, this is significantly different from the earlier games, which basically use the tabletop construction rules there. What did you think of it?
I would like for there to have been actual customizing the colors instead of just pre-designed colors for them, but the game did come out, 20 years ago?
Yeah, pretty much. So, for reference on this here, the original game that Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries engine was based off of, Mechwarrior 4, is actually 20 years old. It was released in 2000.
Okay.
So, yeah. I remember playing that on a Pentium 3 with 512K of RAM.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Looks it.
Yeah, I had like an Athlon XP or something like that at one point.
Something like that there,
And
yeah.
that was at the time I had one of the, I was like, whoa, wow, sweet custom rig.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now my toaster can beat it.
As far as customization goes, I'm liking that you can completely strip down the weapons and just rebuild your weapon systems to however you want, and your weapons controls to however you want. I'm liking that.
Okay, so you kind of felt there were some parts that were a little too restrictive on like what weapons could go where, but when it came to the actual construction,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It actually makes sense to me. Coming from a Mechwarrior Online perspective, what I see is a lot of the same kind of drag and customize settings that you get there, so it's really approachable.
Yeah, with Mechwarrior Online, they tried to refine the system a little bit further there. So rather than having, you've got a limited number of slots, the way you have it is a number of hard points, basically. So you can only put, say, 3 energy weapons into the left torso. But it still has that tabletop flair of, well, where do you put your heat sinks, slot requirements.
Yeah, and that I think like with him, you can see where Mechwarrior 3 was absolutely as per tabletop. Then you go to Mechwarrior 4, which said, oh, that was a mistake. We regret our life choices. Humans are abusive and terrible people. And apparently they're all O2 pilots. God help us all. And so 4 obviously made some pretty significant changes to rein that in.
There's a lot of customization.
Oh, yeah.
To put it mildly. So I ran into the whole, too much choice can sometimes be a bad thing. Just a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of that. It was kind of overwhelming to be like, oh God, there's all this choice. What does this do? What does this do?
Maybe that's the problem with all the DLC and additions that have been added over the years is there's just been so much more.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so with this release, of course, because this was the Mech Tech release,
Right.
they had so much content put in there on unofficial mech packs that, the
it
base
was-
game didn't.
it was
It still
overwhelming.
had that, but yeah.
It was overwhelming.
At least there's defaults though, so you can
Yes.
get a feel for the basic idea of what they intend
Right.
with each mech.
But then it also depends on the build, because some of those builds were, this was a lighter mech, and we have now made it a little tankier, or something like that.
Yeah.
So it definitely gives you, there's an ocean of choice, and there's an ocean of depth in terms of how you can configure the mech. It's just, if it was a little less loaded, or at the very least streamlined.
Yeah, or perhaps if it was a little more filtered. So
Yes.
you knew what you wanted to do, because that's one thing that it doesn't tell you from like the mech lab descriptions there until you actually open up the mech there. It doesn't tell you what weight it is. It doesn't tell
Yeah,
you.
you have to actually select the mech.
Yeah.
Or you just have to know all of this, because what are you doing with all these mods if you don't know at least some of this stuff?
Well,
It's kind of the
also, thankfully,
implication.
we live in the modern era where there's a wiki for literally everything.
Sorry.
And Sarna.
So just because we didn't have really a tutorial on the controls there, how intuitive were the controls?
They were intuitive enough. In terms of kind of mastering the systems, that was going to take a little more time. So it's enough for you to get a basic grasp on combat and movement, but in terms of mastering it, I feel like there's a bit of a learning curve there.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where even with that little bit of heavy jank, it's enough like the other systems that you get used to it pretty
Exactly.
quickly. But if you didn't ever play, if you've never played a Mechwarrior game before, the whole fact that turning the mech's head and turning your head is different
Yes.
can drive you crazy.
Yes, when we last played that, I had to get back into that mindset again because I'm too
Yes.
used to you move the camera, you're moving the whole thing in other games. Whereas yes, there's a separation between where the camera's looking and where the mech actually is moving.
Yeah.
and also in terms of feel, it's a little clunky,
It's
Yeah.
heavy for sure.
heavy. It's very heavy feel. That's a good word.
There's a smoothness to more modern versions of the games.
Yeah, and that's newer titles don't feel quite as much that you're moving such a big tank there.
That's exactly. You feel the weight with.
Yeah.
You feel it.
Yeah, if only we'd played with like force feedback there, you literally would have felt it.
Yes.
That would have been fun.
I don't have a problem with them. I did change them to my preferred controls, which I'm not a WASD gamer. I'm an arrow key gamer. Once I changed them to my preferred controls, then everything worked out really well for me.
Myself, I played every Mechwarrior game since the very first one. It wasn't a huge change or jump. The biggest problem I had was remembering, oh right, old game. It doesn't know what all these extra buttons on my mouse are for. Well, so much for having a separate button for every firing mode, for every weapon system, for everything, including my coffee maker.
Press P to activate the cup holder.
Oh, wait. I wasn't supposed to put it on top of the urban mech? Ah, shit.
I thought the urban mech was the cup. Kind of. Yeah. Fill it with Kool-Aid and, dump in a couple bottles of Everclear. Sorry.
Yeah, just dump in the Kool-Aid, the Everclear, the memes, and some AC rounds, and there you go. One urban mech.
We're going to touch on a little bit of the touchy subject of stackpoling. So, before we turned off the explosion damage, how did you like standing by mechs while they got blown to bits and then chain reaction?
No, okay, I'm gonna stop seething. You all go first.
It was less than ideal, let's put it that way.
That's putting it mildly, in my opinion, but yeah.
Yeah.
That was a design decision by somebody who read like 3 of the 4 honor books and then went out to lunch and started writing game code. I mean, it was Microsoft, so.
Yeah, this was Microsoft Game Studio, so yeah.
Once we turned it off, then I found it to be a lot more playable.
Yeah, that is a significant playability issue. Unfortunately, that also disabled some weapons, like the Long Tom.
Yeah, Arrow 4 and Long Tom really couldn't be used because of that.
Well, Arrow 4, you could still use that.
Oh, it would work on a direct hit.
Yeah.
But you didn't get any of the splash damage.
Exactly. So, for those not in the know, stackpoling refers to put it mildly, the incorrect interpretation that every time a mech is destroyed, its reactor goes critical and explodes. Battle mechs are powered by a fusion reaction. Now, supposedly, what happens when one goes critical and the actual reactor casing itself is breached? While it's still active, the superheated plasma makes contact with air. And this is actually a problem for fusion reactions because they can't exist outside of, very specific conditions there. And air touches plasma? Yeah, foosh.
But it's foosh, not duck and cover.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is a fusion reactor, then, grab yourself like tokamak or something, or, your local poorly piloted urban mech, and you blow a hole through the center of it. All you've done is breach the containment, air comes rushing in, the fusion reaction stops. There's no longer containment, there's no longer compression. So yeah, you blow it up and there's plasma going places, but it's just plasma. You get a very small compressed, it's not even that much hydrogen in there.
Yeah.
So it's not like you lit the Hindenburg on fire and you have, the urban mech screaming, oh, the humanity.
Usually in my experience, what happens is one mech goes down, and then, that amount of damage is enough to take another mech down. And so, you just literally get the shit can cascade.
Run into your squad to kill everyone.
Well, actually, if you want to do that, all you have to do is take a Daishi loaded up with all the high explosives and maximum engine.
And that was actually a problem for multiplayer in Mechwarrior 4, is people would actually deliberately make suicide mechs, and they weren't actually trying to play to not die, they were playing to, basically, they were making little jihad mechs.
Yeah, literally, it's jihad jeeps before they were a thing. And
when did Battlefield come out?
When?
For all of those who play Battlefield and remember what happens when you put C4 on a Jeep and fling it at people, there was a BattleTech version of that for Mechwarrior 4. Much like
you were still in the Jeep.
And people were just chain respawning. It was not ideal. It was poor gameplay.
Yeah, I remember most servers actually banned the use of high explosives, like actually banned
you couldn't
in the configs that you could not equip a mech with high explosives on it.
Yeah, my favorite Mechwarrior 4 server, if you tried doing that, it would actually kick you and put a server broadcast. You do a server broadcast right before it kicked you of, player name here. This is not Word of Blake. Stop trying to jihad. And I'm not even going to touch the whole chunk of BattleTech lore there. That's a can of worms. Let's move on.
We'll just leave that as unfortunate in retrospect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There isn't really much plot. You are piloting a big robot and you break other robots.
Oh, I know. It's more of just.
There is a lot of plot. Fuck you.
Yeah. It's just unfortunately.
The multiplayer side of it, you don't really get to see the plot because the game was originally built to be a single player experience. So the multiplayer missions, you miss the lead in and the conversation.
So it's multiplayer Halo.
Yeah, pretty much. Was what you got. You got
I don't remember much of it.
Multiplayer mission play.
Yeah.
I do. And fuck you, Steiner, bitch.
Yeah.
You could have rebuilt the Star League. You could have been the next Camerons, but you couldn't just be happy with your duchy and being part of the a good chunk of the upcoming future Star League. No. You had to be an absolute bitch because Daddy liked her better.
Kill your own grandmother.
One of the other things that was really interesting about the multiplayer was they had this weird assumption in the multiplayer menu that you had to say, yes, I want to keep playing at the end of every match.
Yeah, actually, we did encounter that as well with ours there, where it was either yes, rejoin, or cancel and escape out from there.
Yeah, you had to actually say, I want to stay here and keep playing, which is really annoying because if you had to go pee or something, you wouldn't join the next map, and then somebody would take your spot, and you'd hit continue, and then you told the server suddenly full. Bio break for just a moment, please.
Bio break, no.
Before I pee myself and scream.
Rage peeing? I thought that was something the cats did.
One feature of Mechwarrior 4 we have not talked about.
Actually, while he's peeing, we should actually have some time for everyone to be able to... Sorry.
Oh, you better cut that out.
Leave it in.
Yeah, Merv is a bit wordy, but,
Well,
as he continues talking from the bathroom. Anyways.
Well, actually,
Leave
one
that
thing
in too.
one thing to talk about would be the voice acting. Just because going on over the years of voice acting, because I like anime as well, and when you look at things like American voice acting, it really didn't come into its own until I'd say 2010 or so. And even then, it's a bit iffy. You've got a lot of professionals now in the field that really give it their all. You're seeing more and more names that are popping up in similar high-budget video games. But at the same time, you've got some people back in the day of, say, Mechwarrior 4 that were given a script and told, okay, be stern, you're the protagonist here. And they took that to mean flat, but you know what? We already did a take, that's good enough.
This is Spectre 1, commander of this Kellhound company. I refute your claim to this territory. I bring 2 lances of warriors to end this struggle.
We're going to go blow that up now. Just in that kind of thing there. But to counter that, I would actually say when you look at a lot of RPGs historically there, even before 2003 there were a lot that had some really good voice acting. But that's mainly in the later 90s when also technology kind of actually crept up that it wasn't just if you wanted voice acting, it had to be CD audio
and you grabbed someone from your office. to do it.
You actually had a crew that that wasn't just the janitor or whoever else we could shove into this booth here.
Yes, that was a real thing that happened.
Yes, actually.
There was a janitor.
Look at DE, they still do it.
Oh god.
Taking the time period into account, honestly, it wasn't that bad. I have heard significantly worse.
There are some people having a lot of fun in this game. I don't know who she is, but one of the female voice actresses is giving it her all, but also having fun, and I was there for that.
Oh yeah, was it actually the mission control lady?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's there was a part of me that wondered if Spectre was flat just so it'd be easier to self-insert, he's just generic everyman.
That's why I was thinking they told him just be a stern protagonist.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because command, your command comm lady, she's got some heart.
Yeah.
Speaking of heart, my favorite part of Mechwarrior 4 was Solaris.
Hello, Solaris fans! I'm Duncan Fisher.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
George Ladeau nailed that.
I was in the Valhalla Club the other night, and one pilot said, "Hey, Duncan, when are you gonna retire?" I'll tell you what I told him. Up yours, buddy.
Duncan Fisher. That's a character that was actually one of the things that made Mechwarrior 4 for me. I actually enjoyed the Solaris missions just because it was actually one of the parts that actually felt real because you felt like you had a real announcer. You felt like, hey, I'm on Solaris. We're doing the gladiator thing with the mechs. This is cool. And he starts off kind of like, who is this guy? Okay, whatever. Some merc who thinks he can make it in Solaris. To I like this guy. He's got heart. I felt like I was robot pilot Rocky.
Yeah, kind of.
All I needed was a guy in a hoodie following me around going, "You're a bum, Spectre. You're a bum. You'll never be more than a bum. How are you gonna shoot? How are you gonna shoot Atlas if you're a bum? Come on, work it. Work it." That's all it was missing was, Mick in his hoodie yelling at me, calling me a bum in target practice.
Actually, you know what? Speaking of Fisher and Stackpoling, I have this headcanon of this all started off from the Solaris matches there. Duncan is just like, hey, little Timmy, you want to make a few seagulls on the side? Here, go take these crates and attach them to the mech reactors. Oh, no, this isn't sabotage. This is a surprise for the crowd. Boxes full of fireworks and, mech goes down and boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, actually I could see Solaris. Yeah, Solaris would definitely do that. There's no doubt. That place is like Las Vegas on crack.
Lore-wise, there's not much that's illegal on Solaris.
No, it's not. Solaris is like that little island in the Caymans that's not actually on the map anymore because no country wants to admit to it. But if you've got the money and you know the people, you can have a great time. And they'll have plenty of photos to blackmail you with when you're a senator. Another voice actor who's actually most people will recognize instantly, Bitchin' Betty.
Oh!
She was the voice of your mech computer.
Yeah.
Back she was in, was it Mechwarrior 2, 3, 4, and she also did MWO. I did the closed beta and alpha stuff for MWO. That was a hoot. I think you did as well, didn't you, Ron?
Yeah. In the day there.
But she turned up apparently she likes Mechwarrior. She turned up in the TeamSpeak servers for the closed testing. And it turned out she was actually one of the testers. And people started asking her to say things in the voice. It was actually really funny. It's also being smack talked, because at that point too, you were being smack talked by your mech's computer. That was very strange. I'm gonna really wonder about that.
It's hard to find any credits for 4. I'm looking at now because I want to see who Spectre's voice actor is because I'm genuinely curious now to see what other works he's done. Because I can genuinely see him, because he gave good reads. It was just a bit more flat, and I'm actually kind of leaning towards Merv's idea now of this is your insert character.
Yeah, that felt like direction, not like.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I was saying. They gave him the direction of be stern but not too much.
I got on that TeamSpeak server one night and heard that voice and went, no.
No, really?
No. This is just a really good impression. And I found like a couple weeks later, no, that was actually her. And I was like, what? Also, I got pwned by Bitching Betty.
I'm genuinely just trying to find Jessica Kirby, the one female voice actress actually listed there. And there is nothing on this lady.
Oh, so that probably...
I know IMDb I think...
It could be a pseudonym.
No, she has been on... at least a couple other things there. Death of Daniel Waitley, Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries, of course, and Detour. Wait, what? She was an NWFL football player for Connecticut Crush?
Dude.
Yeah,
2001 and 2002. Okay.
She's got spirit.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
If you go to IMDb, it has the voice acting cast, but it doesn't tell you who half of their characters were. It does tell you who Duncan Fisher is. Yeah, that's the other thing I was going
crazy for. I was like, okay, well, who played Spectre? I want to, give him a good, honest review, so I want to see some other stuff he's in. No idea.
Yeah. Who could you just, if you're going to list the voice acting cast, could you at least say who they were? I know it's kind of hard. You may have actually had to have actually looked at the game.
Yeah, and see, part of the problem is also when it comes to trying to find some of these people here, especially on IMDb and other places like that, a lot of the industry really didn't take video game voice acting very seriously until recently.
Heck, they barely took animation voice acting seriously.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it's really funny too, because a lot of people also, movie actors, a lot of them would do voice acting gigs for game studios and cartoons on the side, and they would do it under pseudonyms a lot of times too.
Yeah, and that only complicates matters.
Because they had, contractual obligations of, their name can only show up in certain places or whatever. Yeah. But they still have to pay the bills, so they would show up and do these, some of these gigs. They used to not even be credited half the time.
Yeah, that's a shame, and that's why it's so hard to dig up some of these.
Yeah, and that's kind of sad, because some of these people, they put real work into this, and that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, an RPG isn't going to hit you as much if you don't genuinely care about the characters, and back in the day when those polygons weren't very big, all you had was a voice.
Yeah, I also remember the whole, oh look, it's the Emperor of Tamriel, and he died. Oh good, I got to see Patrick Stewart for all of 5 seconds, and you killed him.
And then they hyped him up.
And actually my reaction was every last one of you sons of bitches, every last one of you Daedric worshipping sons of bitches are gonna die. I wanted more Patrick Stewart, and you just stopped that. That was my real motivation in Oblivion, was just avenging Patrick Stewart. Forget the rest of the actual game world. I just was pissed.
The AI seems decently challenging. I mean, at least to me as a new player, it seemed to throw at least a reasonable level of challenging at us.
I think we're playing with what's set to like medium. With a medium difficulty?
I actually don't know. There was no difficulty slider to
there wasn't?
on these here. It may have actually been at its most difficult setting. Or it might have been at normal. I have no way of telling.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is like that the campaign and that content was built around, you had like a couple AI buddies and you, the extremely competent human. So a lot of those things would throw another wave at you. You were the competent one. I'm not saying the AI was potato, but they were just like any other AI in the game. They weren't any better or any worse. I mean, at least if you hired good pilots.
Yeah.
If you hired a potato pilot, it had the potato AI, and why is it running into the building?
Yeah.
That was frustrating. And I'm hoping it's because it was on the very hard mode, because otherwise that's just really embarrassing how many shots I took and still couldn't kill a single freaking mech, while he killed almost all of the mechs with me as assist.
See, for me, that very first round, I was not getting a single kill off, just because I was still adjusting to the controls, and again, it's very weighty. So adjusting to that weightiness, that initial adjustment period, made it feel a little more difficult than I think it really is. Because once I started to get a hang of, okay, this is how it feels to actually move, this is kind of the timing on when I actually fire my primary and secondary weapon. Once I got a better feel for that, I think it felt a little less difficult. But again, there's that initial difficulty just spike where you have to learn again how it actually feels to control the mech.
Right on.
Once you get that down, then it becomes a lot easier to manage. I don't know. It didn't feel cheap to me. That's the important thing, is it doesn't feel like the AI is a big, fat, stinky cheater. I didn't have that, so I was fine with the difficulty as it was.
Actually, I'm pretty sure it was actually on the hardest difficulty there, because we would actually get some of the named enemies that would show up on normal difficulty.
Yeah, we were getting named ones, so that was on the
Really
hardest.
interesting names.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, some of those names are, welcome to BattleTech.
I'm excited to see if 5 is going to have more advanced AI where they actually try and do formations and, actual, more difficult attacks based on setting and such. So I have a topic, actually. Mods.
Mods, yes.
But did you guys do more than that? Have you ever downloaded any mods for 4? Is there anything else you'd like to, any shout-outs you want to give to ones that you would include?
Oh, God. Yeah, the mod community, when you look at these games, a lot of them are a product of their times. If you look at the textures, as Silk mentioned, lack of visual customization. And so some of the graphics and stuff, when you compare it to a modern game, we've been spoiled with visual customization.
Yeah, and just when it comes to the actual modding on that, there were some high-res texture packs available for a while there to be able to, increase that fidelity.
Yeah, but there wasn't a whole lot bilinear, trilinear filtering. That wasn't a thing at the time.
Yeah, it literally didn't exist. The engine could not do this.
Yeah, the engine couldn't. So when you see these textures, they look kind of wonky because you're rendering them at an angle. So a lot of these rendering technologies that we take for granted as, basics today, the hardware didn't support it. I mean, it was beyond the technical capability at the time.
Yeah. So at least when it came to visual modding, there were some pretty severe limitations on that. But just expanding beyond that scope there, how about on the weapons or mechs or, adding things on that side there?
Somebody had a server that was up and running back in the day that did 30s, whatever the heck, Word of Blake, Jihad, weird experimental technology. I think we also had some of that mod or some of those items also in the mod that we were using for the multiplayer.
Yeah, a little bit there. But the actual co-op mission play is literally a mod.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to do this otherwise.
And that mod, I think, brought in a lot of stuff from tabletop for the advanced tactical weapons and things.
Some of those.
PPCs with capacitors, things like that.
Well, no, that was in the base game.
It was?
Yeah, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I thought that was added in by a mod.
Yeah.
It's
there
been a
were
while.
also some mech packs that were released that were bundled in.
Yeah, it's been a while since I played that. Yeah, my favorite paint scheme from when it first came out, I noticed wasn't present in the multiplayer mod we were doing. I'm not sure where the heck that came from or went. But, games.
Yeah, I couldn't find Hex or Dazzle or any of the other really annoying
The
ones.
Harrier one was one I was looking for.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, the blue-green Harrier paint job. Mod-wise, though, I'm talking about the INI files. This is something that modern PC gamers don't really do as much. I mean, some do.
Not as much, not unless you're running some of the dedicated servers and things like that,
Yeah.
where you actually need to,
delve into it, but also like UIs have gotten better over the years and also worse.
Yeah.
Depends on the game studio and how much cocaine they snorted today. But yeah, and so some games, and this is actually part of what led to like the whole comments about back in the day about PC Master Race, because it used to be considered standard practice back in the day, late 90s, 2000s, that if you had all the UI options in the game for key binding and whatnot, but if you wanted to do something a bit beyond, it wasn't cheating, it wasn't hacks, you just simply went into the config file. If you bothered to learn the syntax that they used while making the game's config file, you could map your own key bindings and you could put in multiple analog controllers. Unless a game's built for a HOTAS these days, if you plug in a HOTAS system, games these days, they see that and they freak out. My character
side.
Oh, actually, funny thing is, PlanetSide 2 used to support the HOTAS, and they changed that because they wanted to bring in controller support. But the controls were both, if you went through the game's menu, the control, the mapping wasn't as free as you get in some games today. But you could go into the INI file and dance rings around what you could get out of most games' menus. Because I actually, at one point, I tried the dual stick thing. I tried dual sticks with pedals. I eventually settled on a stick, pedal, mouse. Because the mouse was easier to aim with than the stick. But for a little while, I was actually playing it full sim pit with, dual sticks, one in each hand, so I could steer, aim, and then I was putting my throttles and jump jet stuff on my pedals, and that would actually, while doing online multiplayer, people would kind of double take for a second sometimes because they'd see the little Uziel running by them, fluidly moving around, and they'd be like, "What is this madness? What is this bizarreness?
What is this?"
Yeah, you could map every one of these controls. I was mapping them all to different sticks and things, so that I was able to use both hands, my feet, and I was actually running true HOTAS. I never had to move. My hands never came off the controls. I never had to move them. Everything I needed was right there. Everything else was, had analog input. And so I just had a very good degree of finite control, fluid control, and with the exception of my right hand being a mouse and not a stick, it was actually very close to how they describe mech piloting in BattleTech. My one big gripe in Mechwarrior, all Mechwarrior games, is mechs, all of them, have that arm. It's the elbows
Fixed
down
angle.
at a fixed angle. The mech, I need to shoot over this wall. Lift my arm and aim.
Yeah.
They weren't stuck to the side like, some go-go rock'em sock'em robot. I mean, you've got actuators in the arm.
We won't see that until there's a Mechwarrior VR game. We could actually have mech melee.
Which means the Hatchet Man's day will come.
Sock'em robots.
Okay, well, that's even worse because in BattleTech, the tabletop, you don't see the melee weapons in any of the Mechwarrior games.
Yeah.
But in tabletop BattleTech, that was one thing the Inner Sphere had that scared the bejesus out of the clans if they got into close range, is they had mechs that had melee weapons, and they would frequently hit the pilots that used them well. Here comes the axe for more damage than you have head, and that means the pilot's now dead.
Yeah.
Get good salvage.
Not even a chance to eject there. But actually perfect salvage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny because when it was warm enough to make the triple strength my armor kick in, it would frequently not just take the head, but it'd go partway into the torso too.
Yeah, that was scary just because of over damage.
So yeah, the damage, that's the other thing too, is the way damage rolls over from one component to the next varies in some of these games.
Okay, well, I think we've moved it pretty much to the end here, so what we'll just do is a quick roundtable on this. How many points out of 10, just in general, would you rate this game?
7 or 8. It was a fun game. No, we definitely had some issues getting it to run on newer hardware, but that was...
Yeah, that's an issue dragging anything that old back onto a modern system.
Oh yeah, that was definitely some Frankensteining right there.
Virtual machine.
Boxes are your...
Yeah, because the original game doesn't even know what this processor and graphics chipset are.
Oh.
If you're running like Ryzen AMD, it literally stares at you and goes, "What strange alien bullshit have you found for me here?"
And then
They're like the monkeys going up to, the monolith going...
and then even after we got it running, suddenly it didn't want to work again.
Yeah, we did run into issues after getting up and running. We couldn't run at the higher resolutions because with the emulation we were doing to make it work, it would start going down left and
Or
just
down right.
down right, and you just kind of sit there and sniff your own butt for a while.
Yep.
My experience with it, I'd say when it first came out, I would say 10 out of 10. I loved that game. I played the wheels off of it. I played the legs off of it. I played that game until the hip actuator screamed bloody murder and I had to finally go oil it. And then I didn't have hardware that would play it anymore and the servers went away.
Yeah.
I would always be dusting it off. Even if I hadn't played in a while, I'd dust it off and go play multiplayer with some folks or whatever. Eventually, obviously, we got to a point where it's just not happening. Against what I'd say modern sensibilities.
Yeah, with the benefit of hindsight.
Yeah, against modern sensibilities, yeah, there's room for improvement. I'd probably still put it like, 7 out of 10, probably 8 out of 10.
On a scale of 1 to 10, again, taking into account when the game came out and all the wrinkles that comes with, I would say a 7 out of 10.
This thing is a product of its times. When you start looking at like retro gaming and stuff, a lot of times you have to stop and go, what am I dealing with? Is this a game design decision or was this a limitation of the technology they had to do the job back then? So my question is, Cricket, since you don't have the benefit of nostalgia, to be honest, you never had that 10 of 10, this is the brand new AAA experience. How did you feel about it?
For the time period, definitely a 7 out of 10. I would have definitely played through the whole game by that point. Had a lot of fun with it. But these days, it's down to like a 5 out of 10 for frustration.
Again, just due to the age, playing it now, just the experience of trying to install it. Not even trying to run it, just trying to install it.
Yes.
That alone was yes.
So that's another one of those just warnings of if you're interested in picking it up, be
Like,
aware you're
I would
gonna
give it
be messing about.
a 4 or 5.
Yeah.
4 or 5. Just because, again, all the inconveniences and the hoops you have to go through to install it.
It's why remasters can be good.
Yes.
I think we'll call it as a wraps here. Thank you everyone for joining, and a big thank you, of course, to our players. We'll join you again with our take on Mechwarrior 5 whenever the hell we get to uploading it. We're not very good at keeping schedules, uploading things, whatever.
Yay, adults.
We've all got jobs. We all got shit to do.
Do you know how long it takes to get the jump ship engine charged back so I can come back here after a campaign and record these things? Never mind finding one off that shit pirate moon. Ugh. Do you know what I had to pay Comstar just to send a frickin' email?
Hey, this is why we give you a percentage of the salvage.
Wait, he's commissioned?
Welcome to mercenary life, man.
Yeah, pretty much.
Flat rate plus commission. By the way, anyone who had ever seen that old Mechwarrior Battletech cartoon, I do like the way they retconned that. No, that was just a propaganda thing playing in Merc space and making fun of the clans. Love it. That's how you retcon something.
You orderless dogs! I shall have your planet!
Somebody left his switch set to honor. 1 second, let me flip it back to C-bills. Okay, we're back. Actually, my favorite I hate you clans insult. Yeah, Kerensky led you out of here so you could not make slaves, not do this, not kill civilians. You are doing the very things that made Kerensky leave the inner sphere. Leave the inner sphere. Leave the inner sphere. Leave the inner sphere. Leave the inner sphere.